So now we have time for some discussion, some questions, and comments. Who would like to begin? Don't be shy.
Is it possible to be materialistically rich as well as spiritually rich? Like you can get best of both worlds? Or if you seek for materialistic things, that means spiritually. 可以物质上的幸福，也可以精神上的幸福，两者可以同时存在。谢谢。
按照佛教的观点呢，就是讲，物质上的幸福，依靠物质而带来的，也可以有，更重要的呢，精神上的这种幸福，但精神当中的话，可能更是比较深层次的这种幸福，它是不容易改变，不容易有很多的变化。长期的可以存在，年轻的时候也可以有，中年的时候也可以有，老年的时候也有，或者依靠物质上的一些幸福，可能会一段时间有，但是受到金融危机的时候没有。
So from Buddhist point of view, material wealth or material happiness rely on materials. Spiritual happiness is more profound, stabler, more unchanging. So you can have spiritual happiness when you are very young, when you are in your middle age, when you are old. You can all the time you can enjoy spiritual happiness. And for material happiness, you may enjoy it for part of your life, and then maybe it will be gone. Why? When economic crisis happens, then those kind of happiness may be gone too.
You mentioned that many rich people are unhappy because they're afraid of losing the money and so on, and many poor people are happy because of meditation, mindfulness. And I'm wondering whether someone who is rich uses meditation, in other words, to calm their emotions, negative things, would that be good for them because they've got both material things and also a higher form of happiness with the meditation? I wonder if you can have both.
他就说是，您刚才讲到，就说有一些富的人，虽然他们很富，但是因为他们很怕自己的钱丢了呀，或者说是被偷了，等等等等，这样，所以他们可能没有那么就是幸福或者快乐。一些穷人的话，虽然他物质上很穷，但是因为他做这种禅修，所以他感到很幸福。那有没有可能就是说是那种就是说很富的人，他们也可以通过禅修的方法，让他们精神上也是的非常的就是说富裕和幸福？
对。如果他比较富贵的人，他依靠物质的享受的，同时呢，精神也让富裕，精神也让禅修。当然，这样的话完全是可以的，这样的先例呢也是有的。但是很多人如果他不懂内心的禅修的话，可能他仅仅是依靠一种物质的。这种快乐来满足自己，充实自己就非常有困难的。如果有这种，当然是非常好，也有可能的。还有，可能怎么讲，贫穷当中这个修行也不好的，这个禅修也没有不好的，就是什么都不行的。也有人一般都有4种类，精神和物质之间呢，就是它可以分4种类别的。
So for rich people enjoying their material happiness, if they do meditation, they can also be very spiritually very happy. That's something happens, and we have cases like that. But for a lot of people, like a lot of rich people, they really rely on their happiness on material things. That's why I give that example, because they only rely on materials. There are a majority of the rich people do that. And also there are like poor people, they don't do meditation at all. So they are spiritually and materially poor in both sides. So there are 4 categories of people if you think in this way. So maybe material and spiritually both happy, and then both poor, and maybe just one side of the happiness they got. So there are 4 categories.
Hi, thank you very much for your talk, Sheshe. I want to ask, is there really such a thing, such as happiness for Buddhism? And I say it because, especially in the Western perspective, happiness always brings with it the fear of losing such happiness, which causes suffering. And we know that Buddhism is about basically the lack of suffering. So, isn't maybe, especially for a Western audience, not to talk, isn't it better not to talk about happiness, but rather, achieving a lack of suffering, which is maybe better translated with the word enlightenment rather than happiness, because happiness in Western perspective I think it's very different from what we actually are talking about today for us.
Do you mean in Western culture, it's better to see how can you get rid of suffering instead of see how can you gain happiness?
Yes, because I think of happiness as something which can cause suffering just because you are afraid of losing it.
Okay. And your question is?
My question is that it's better in this for us not to talk about happiness, like happiness for Buddhism, but rather maybe achieving lack of suffering.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
It's confusing.
Help me if my interpretation is
他就是说，可能是在这个西方的这种文化背景下头呢，我们是不是说，如果去得到一个幸福，可能不太合适，因为说去得到幸福的话，你就会去担心会丢失这个幸福，它还是会给你产生痛苦，所以说可能更彻底的一种说法是，怎样子可以去除痛苦。但是他的问题呢，就是说，我就不是很清楚，他是要这样。
对，他的问题就是我们是不是应该更合适，去说我们远离痛苦，而不是说去追求幸福。
其实他就是自己回答了自己提问这样
子。其实你就帮助我刚才大卫的比喻，应该可以这么讲，我们现在世界的人们呢，都认为是一种追求，应该这个幸福是很远的地方就带来，自己拥有的时候呢，就是把它紧紧的抓住，不管是感情上的、财富上面的，但实际上这个也我们可以承认是一个幸福，但是还有一种呢，就我们自身具有的有一种幸福满足，就这个是我们挖掘出来，我们开发、理解它、了解它、发现它、适用它，就这个是更关键、更重要。
So I think the story about the statue of David maybe help me to answer your question, because a lot of people in the world think they are trying to find happiness or pursue happiness from far away. They want to get the happiness externally, and once they find some happiness, either from material or from their relationship with other people, they want to grasp it because they don't want it to go away. However, I think that way your question and your answer are good, are correct. But at the same time, excuse me, and I also want to see there are the innate happiness which is within us, and what we need to do is to unlock it or reveal it, which is already in there. Yeah.
非常开心上次能够来到 LSE， 然后作为菩提学会的一个成员，还有就是LSE 的一个研究生，就是作为一个小主人的心情跟上师说欢迎您，然后就想送上师一个小礼物，这是 LSE 的吉祥物，它是小海狸，就是代表勤勉的意思，就跟上师一样，就是弘法日夜不停的在全世界。所以我的问题就是说，因为有时候我的那个西方的朋友会问我，因为我们在佛教里面会谈到五戒这个问题，然后的话因为他是有一些初学的人，他会觉得说这并不是太那个。对，他会觉得五戒是一个他觉得说，对于他们来说，五戒他觉得是一个非常被動的一个理念，让好像是限制到了他们的幸福一样。As one of the LSE master student, I'm so happy and very exciting for my master Kempo Sodaji coming today. So I'm sending LSE Moscow for Sodaji Kempo because this is a little beaver. So the meaning which why LSE choose this one is because it stands for the legend. So it's the same meaning as Sodaji Kempo. So he's quite diligent because he's like spread all the Buddha Adhamas over the world. So my question is like, because as a Buddhism, we know as a Buddhist we know there have called 5 principles in Buddhism, which is like not to kill, not to steal, not to lust, and not to drink.
Take wine.
Yeah, and not to lie. But some friends, as a kind of Western peoples, it's a kind of a new beginners, as a kind of Buddha study. They asked me like, it seems like kind of a negative, a positive way, and when they accept this kind of principles, they feel it's not very happy from their inner hearts. So when I face this kind of situation, how can explain of the 5 Buddha's principles?
5 ethical disciplines.
Yeah.
Thank you. 这样的很可爱，谢谢。
Adorable.
首先，说无戒啊，其实无戒它不是一种约束，它是2500多年前对我们的人类的比较高的一种道德的规范。因为我们现在都不管是东方西方，我觉得无戒很需要的。首先不能杀人，就这个每个国家都有不准杀人的，对吧？然后屠刀，就你看屠刀的话，那哪个国家都会有受法律的责任。然后不准邪淫，对这个家庭的这个观念呢，邪淫对各个在家人来讲，也是很重要，否则的话可能不一定很正常。然后呢，就大妄语，大妄语就是我们现在说的骗子，就是不能受骗，那么同时呢，我们如果这个喝大量的酒的话呢，对自己的精神和身体健康，包括他做的事情都非常有害的，没有程序的。所以这种无戒呢，虽然没有这么说，但是一般的这个高层次的这种人物的话呢，都需要这个说的。如果无戒当中的一个没有说的话，可能会很麻烦的。所以我并没有觉得是这是对东西方哪个国家有一些损害，而且通过我们这种人的这种水平行为越来越有一种高尚的限制。就像你们学校有学校的制度，一个国家有国家的法律，一个民族有民族的规范，但其实它是一个全人类的一个最基本的道德底线。
So for talking about these 5 ethical disciplines, I don't think these ethical disciplines are really kind of try to restrain people. I think it's a moral codes for all the people. I think it's very necessary because let's look at these 5 ethical disciplines. First, don't kill people. So this kind of thing, I think every country all agree we should not kill other people, right? And also the second one is stealing. Don't steal. That's something I think people in the world all agree. And the third one is sexual misconduct, which means don't have sex outside of your marriage. And I think that's something everyone also think is a good thing. And then the fourth one is don't cheat. Don't say lies to cheat other people. And the fifth one is don't take too much alcohol. Because if you take too much alcohol, you cannot do a lot of things. Even you cannot drive, right? That's something very obvious. So I think these 5 ethical disciplines are very good for people, and it can benefit people no matter it's in the West or in the East. So I don't see it's a problem. And I think if we do not have these ethical disciplines, then we have trouble. So if you really kind of like use these ethical disciplines to help you to behave yourself, then you will become more noble. And this is something like in school you have regulations, and in the country you have these legal systems. This is something I think human beings all should have. It's a moral conduct thing.
I'm going to ask a question. I got the mic. You mentioned compassion as one of the routes to happiness. I think it was in your third section. But some people that I know from the Tibetan tradition put a great deal of stress on compassion. And the 2 forms of meditation which seem to be taught most in Britain now are mindfulness, which is rather self-regarding, and compassion, which is other-regarding. And I would really like to know what you think should be the proper balance in meditation between the pure awareness and compassion, which is reaching out.
所以说，教授说现在该他来问问题，因为他已经拿到麦克了。然后他说，您刚才在第2部分的时候呢，讲到说慈悲是幸福的根本。然后他说，他知道有2种这种修法嘛，就是说，一个是就是说那种很纯粹的正念的修法，这种正念修法的话，它可能是更多都是纯粹的是在关注自己的这种，然后的一种禅修方法。然后那个慈悲的话，就是说我们更多的是去看别人，去关注别人，怎么去帮助别人。那么这2种修法的话，一个是对自身的一种关注，一个是对他人的一种关注。这2种之间，是怎样子，就是说有一个更好的一个平衡？请你在这方面的一些介绍。
我们一般讲其实自身的这种正念禅修呢，为了自己的利益达到更高的境界呢，他也可以修行。然后为了别人的这种利益呢，他也可以正念禅修。但关键是他的意乐动机呢，如果为自己而修的话，它的这个力量和效果呢并不是特别大。如果为他人而修呢，这个功德或者是力量是更大的。尤其是我们修慈悲心，按照佛教讲，就是这叫做是大乘佛教。也就是说，我们想开始就是想帮助别人的这种意念不断的丰富，然后在实际行为当中呢，到时候可以我们自己的这种心得到一定的境界的时候，就可以帮助非常非常多的人。为什么现在有些人虽然是一个弱小的人，但是他会帮助这个世界各个的各种各样的人。其实这个人的一种修行境界到一定的时候呢，他可以发挥这种力量。所以说这是可能次第方面的，次第方面还没有到很高的境界的时候，自己禅修；到了一定境界的时候，心力再扩大，就是慈悲心再扩散。
For mindfulness meditation, it is about the concentration about yourself, but the motivation can be different. Your intention can be different. You can do the mindfulness meditation just for your own interest or your own benefit. But at the same time, you can do mindful meditation for the benefit of other beings. You can have these two kinds of intention or motivation. But if you have the motivation for only your own benefit, then it's not so powerful. It will be weakened. But if you do the mindful meditation for all the other beings, then the merit and the power will be stronger. So it really depends on your intention or your motivation. Then about the compassion meditation or practice or cultivating compassion, that is a category of meditation emphasized in Mahayana Buddhism. That is, you want to help others. You make wishes, I want to help other beings, like that. And then you go out, take action to do that. And when you reach a kind of level of this kind of meditation or cultivation, then you can really help other people. You can see nowadays some people, they just one person, but they can help people all around the world. That's because their meditation, their realization have already reached some high level, so they can do that. So I think mindfulness meditation and compassion and cultivation or meditation, there are just different levels. So at first, you may have to focus on mindfulness meditation to improve your own practice, your own state of mind. And then when you reach a very good level of that kind of meditation, then you can go ahead to do the cultivating compassion or that kind of meditation, compassion meditation.
Hello, thank you very much for sharing your opinion. My question is, what is the Buddhist view on death or losing your loved ones? Because I feel like even if you kind of like try to find your inner happiness, I feel like those would be the constraints that would kind of like limit like for you to reach that point. So what I wonder is how we should view death. Like how do we see death, and so that we can actually kind of like decrease our level of suffering. Thank you.
Okay. 教授刚才说他的问题非常好。然后他的问题就是说，从一个佛教的角度，怎样去看待死亡，特别是我们就是说很亲爱的一些人，他们去世。因为虽然我们确实可以像您刚才讲的这样子，就是说去寻找内心的一种幸福和快乐，但是他感觉到就是说，当这个亲人去世的时候，好像这个内心的就是本有的这种快乐，好像就有一个它的一个限制了，就没办法就进行下去了。所以说，他想知道说，我们应该怎样子正确的去看待死亡。然后让我们的就是在面对死亡的时候的痛苦能够减少。
我也觉得你的问题很好。
Kendra said, "I also think your question is very good."
当你面对死亡呢，可能不一定那个时候可能非常快乐，但是如果有一些，比如说佛教就刚开始的时候，我们会关心人的生老死病、生老病死，这是必经之路。虽然有些民族和有些国家根本不能提死的字，就它不吉祥，它很忌讳它，但实际上我们佛教呢，就首先的是对死亡有所准备，而且我们会讲一切万法都是无常的，感情也无常的，家庭也无常的，包括我们每一个人呢，也会到一定的时候离开。那么我们首先心里有准备的时候，当一个人死亡呢，他会有一些伤心，但是不会就是特别的，你知道是这个真相，因为他的生命是不可能永远是很长不变的。首先我们都有这样的一个非常明确的规律，这个规律很清楚的时候，我们不会 不会特别的痛苦，而且很淡定。所以，我自己认为这样的，我并不是赞叹佛教，特意赞叹佛教，但是有时候有些修行呢，可能真的在实践当中所发生的很多问题，包括一些无常的死亡啊，就这些都是提前有所修行的话，面对生活、面对压力非常容易。
So when we face death, it is natural that we are not so happy. That's something we all have to admit. But in Buddhism, in Buddhist training, at the first beginning of most of the Buddhist training, we will study the law or the definite result or what is going to happen in our life is birth, aging, sickness, and death. So these four things, no one can avoid it. But I know some places in this world, when you mention about death, it's something kind of like a taboo. You cannot mention that in front of people. People will feel like while you are talking about death, that's something inauspicious. But this is something true. And also in Buddhism, we talk about impermanence a lot. So your relationship, your family can be impermanent. And everyone has to die. That's something unshakable. We all have to die. That's something we have to prepare in our mind. So if you have already prepared in advance before some loved one died, when they really die, you may still feel sad, but you know they're not going to stay in this world forever. And because you already learned those principles, this four phenomena, no one can avoid, then you will not feel extremely sad. And here, Kimbo said, I'm not trying to praise or see high of Buddhism, but for a lot of Buddhist practitioners, because they have this kind of training, they have already familiarized their mind about what's going to happen in their life and in their friends or their loved one's life. So when they face suffering, when they face death, they know this is something normal. They will not be so sad. So if we all have this kind of training or this kind of preparation in advance, then we can face anything in our life calmly.
阿弥陀佛，顶礼上师。我是欧洲菩提学会的学员，非常的开心今天在这里见到上师到来闻法。同时，我有2个问题想请问上师。第一个是关于这个放生的问题，因为是在我们在欧洲这个地方呢，很难买到这个活的河鱼那些物品。那这样子的话，就制约了我们放生想放生的这些很多道友。另外一方面呢，这里可以买到很多活的海鲜，但是呢又离海边有一点距离。这种情况之下呢，我们这些道友之间有一个探讨，就是说，要么就不放，有些人说要放就拿到海边去，有些人就觉得，先从屠刀下把它救出来，反正放到那个湖里，而且这个湖也通向海的也一部分而已，这样子都好过不放。我想请求上师回答这个问题。第一，第二个问题就是关于这个临终关怀。因为我们这边
简单的问，好吧，一个就可以吧。
临终关怀，对不起，谢谢上师。好。
So her question was because in Europe it's not so easy to buy live creatures because she's talking about liberating those captured animal, fish or creatures like that. Because here it's so hard to buy live creatures, especially freshwater creatures in there, like fish. So they buy marine creatures, and her question was, if they buy marine creatures, they have to go to oceans to release them. So her question was, should they do this still do this, or they should? So it's very hard. She wants to get some suggestions from Kempo to suggest them to do it better.
可能放生要，如果海线就是比较远一点的地方，我们在那边卖的时候，有时候经常放到开2-3个小时开车的地方，每天去，就是所以可能英国不是很大的，就是到海边也不会很困难，所以如果要是放生呢，就是最好是到海里放啊，就是让他的生命就很安全的度下去。这方面可能要想办法。就是关于放生的问题，可能还要就是你们很多对放生有兴趣的人呢，应该可以就关心。因为我经常看到欧洲这边就是保护动物协会的人经常示威游行啊，有很多一些对保护动物方面，当然是这方面都我相信有很多经验，你们好好研究研究。
Kiko's advice for her is I think she thinks it's hard to release those ocean fish to oceans because maybe it's too far. Kiko said because here in UK is not so big, so it's not hard to go to the ocean side to release them. And like back in China, people always like drive 2 or 3 hours to release those captured creatures. So he thinks it's okay for them to still do this. And also, it can be said maybe they should study more about how to put them in a safer place, how to make them live better. Because in Europe, people emphasize a lot about animal rights and protection. So he thinks it's a good thing to do. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry there's not time for more, but I want to say that this has been an amazing experience for many of us, I think all of us. We don't often have the opportunity to receive such wisdom on the most basic things of life. We tend not to talk about them, and this way of talking about them, I think, is quite a wonderful way. I think it is the case, in my view, certainly, that many of the problems of the West will only be solved by greater use of the wisdom of the East. I think that this is a wonderful example of that, and we've been very privileged to have it. So, Kempo, you've got your memento from the LSE, and I think we would all like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. What a lovely, thank you.